Welcome back to Astrofic, your dose of fun, relatable astrology content where we apply astrology to fictional characters to find out why they're like that. I'm your host, Celeste V, and this week we are talking about none other than Plutarch Heavensbee. Alright guys, this is gonna be one doozy of an episode. I am so infatuated with the character that is Plutarch Heavensbee. But I should address something at the top of this episode in regards to this Hunger Games series. As Suzanne Collins has expanded the world of the Hunger Games, I too have contributed to this expansion by plotting, by creating a timeline of astrological placements within the Hunger Games universe. So I've been taking into account the order of characters' births. So I really take note of the fact that Tigress is older than everybody I've covered so far. And the only person potentially older than her, I think, is Tam Amber. So yeah, we don't always know their exact birthday or even what season their birthdays are in, but we tend to know general ages. And so with that in mind, I've been attempting to keep the outer generational planets in alignment with where they'd be given their starting point. If you want to hear where the outer planets are at the start of the conflicts in the Hunger Games, go listen to the episode on Tigress, because she's the oldest of all the characters, like I said. But this episode's about Plutarch Heavensbee, of course. None other than... Sorry, this episode is coming out on Saturday and not Friday. Give a girl a break. I'm trying, okay? This is very new and I'm trying. So I don't really have anything I feel like sharing this week. Oh, but keep an eye out on the astrofic.jpg Instagram, because this weekend is a new moon, so expect a Substack post and some Instagram posts, and then obviously this episode. I'm going to begin putting up the paid posts that are the notes to past episodes, starting with Lucy Gray, I believe. Lucy Gray up to the present, those notes are the easiest to access for me, so those are the ones that are going to be going up first. But I will dig into my older stuff, my archives and things, and pull those and put them on the Substack as well. Do bear in mind that those posts are locked to paid subscribers only. I tried. Hey, can I be real with you guys for a second? Can I level with you for a second? I tried to make it less than $5 a month for subscriptions to my Substack. They just wouldn't let me. So yeah, just something I wanted to tell you guys. Okay, so with all that being said, let's get into the episode. Giving you a little taste of his big three. He's firstly got an Aquarius sun. Isn't that just delightful? Isn't that just delicious? Taurus moon, also delectable and delicious. And where we begin every episode, the first house, the rising sign, also known as the ascendant. I gave him a Capricorn rising. I really, really love Plutarch Heavensbee as a character. But of all the characters that I've done on this show, I feel like we know the least about him. So this episode was actually pretty difficult for me to write, but I wanted to do it immediately after reading Sunrise on the Reaping, you know? One thing's for sure, though. This motherfucker knows how to play the long game in such a way that only a Saturn-ruled individual could. Saturn-ruled individuals built the long game. They know exactly what it takes to succeed in the long game, and they're prepared to do anything to get what they want. So yeah, he's a Capricorn rising. Also, he's been a capital fucking spy for like 30 goddamn years. So he's very good at keeping up traditional appearances. And Cap is better at that than Aquarius. So that's why I ultimately decided to give him a Cap rising. Because he, like, you know, upon first meeting, one might assume that Plutarch is a capital lackey, much in the same way that like Effie is, or Dr. Gall, or Snow himself, you know what I mean? But this little superpower he has of being basically unnoticeable for the most part, unless he wants to be noticed, to blend in with the traditional crowd very well, is important and maybe even a staple of his long game plan. Being ruled by Saturn means he can also recognize inequity, and he doesn't have as much trouble putting himself in others' shoes. I think that's another like kind of secret superpower that Saturnians have, is they can very easily imagine themselves in somebody else's shoes, and they can see when situations are unfair, because a lot of the time situations are unfair to Saturnians. There's just no goddamn justice for us. little salty as an Aquarius rising, but it's okay. All right, so he doesn't have any other Capricorn placements though, but he does have some other Aquarius placements. As you know, he has his Aquarius sun. I just couldn't separate Plutarch Heavensbee from the Aquarian archetype. The humanitarian, are you kidding me? And also, Aquarius is so eccentric and unconventional. People often distrust Aquariuses at first, and that's just so central to Plutarch's interactions with the characters that we see him through. He's just so Aquarian. He's here for the people, even if the people don't know it. Aquarius doesn't really mind if it gets overlooked. You know, it doesn't always want to take all the credit for everything, but, you know, a little nod here or there to him is enough to keep him going, which is what he gets. He's not vying for attention or the spotlight, and he even prefers people to not notice him unless he specifically wants them to, which is very Aquarius. And also because he's a fucking spy, I intuitively wanted to give him a lot of Aquarius placements, and this is like all in my own head and not reliant on canon. It makes me wonder if he's got like rebel blood in him the way that the Chances do, Arlo Chance, Woodbine Chance, etc. And I looked into it. His Heavensbee ancestors that we hear about, Trojan, and Hilarious, are just fully capital slugs. They're so not the rebellious type. But that doesn't mean that his other family, or perhaps his like actual direct mother's side of the family, had more of a rebellious streak. It's just a personal headcanon that I have that I hope is maybe one day affirmed, potentially. Like, I kind of wonder, is he a descendant of some important rebel spy who infiltrated the capital? Kind of like the same way that in the show Bones, I don't know, I just recently finished that show, but in the show Bones, her partner, her FBI partner Booth, is descended from John Wilkes Booth. So like, does Plutarch have something kind of like that going on? It just makes me wonder, you know. But again, those are like full headcanons and they mean nothing. So his other placement in Aquarius, I think this is the only other one, yeah, is his Venus. Oh my god, I didn't even mention, this is all in the second house. Okay, so the second house is the house of like our foundations. It's about stability. I think also it's about like morals in a way, not like full on your morals, but like kind of the foundational thinking points you create regarding life, like how life works. And so like that dictates like the choices you make, the stability you feel, the comfortability you feel, and things like that. Because the second house is traditionally ruled by the sign Taurus, so that's why I think it has such like a truly like this, the second house captures all of the foundations of you as a person, as an individual, every foundational step that made you who you were. So with him having Aquarius in the second house, it's giving like, you know, curious, rebellious, eccentric, and again, the role of the humanitarian. He just something, you know, some kids are just born with this very intense like social justice streak. Like they just very intensely feel when something is unjust, and they try really hard to fix it. So that's kind of like what this house is giving me. But moving back to the planets, he has Venus here. His true love will always be his mission. Sorry, Venus in Aquarius placements have a hard time in relationships. They tend to have trouble connecting with others in a romantic sense. And as far as the Venus signs go, Aquarius Venuses have trouble trusting people as well. They're not the most distrustful, but they're up there. And while he struggles letting people into his life in this manner, I think that he does quite quickly grow fond of others and think of them as part of his pack, even if they're not like close to him or part of his inner circle or life. If he even has an inner circle, he's very much giving the energy of somebody who kind of goes solo riding, you know? There's like such a small percentage of people who will get this, and I hope that at least one person who will get this is listening. He gives Calroy Cruller energy from A Crown of Candy, Dimension 20, A Crown of Candy. Like Plutarch Heavensbee is just kind of the good guy version of Calroy Cruller, in my opinion. Let's move on to the third house. He has his Mercury here in Pisces. Oh, he has 3 placements here. Okay, this is a bit of a doozy house. Well, let's get into it. Despite his tendency towards keeping information secret, Plutarch is really compassionate and non-maliciously curious about things he doesn't understand. So Mercury, you know, is the planet of thinking and communication. Pisces is a water sign, first of all, very deeply feeling. It's the mutable water sign. It molds to fit others' needs. And I think is one of the more deeply empathetic signs without an agenda. Pisces often doesn't have an agenda for its empathy, whereas a Scorpio might, you know. I say that as a Scorpio myself. However, this isn't a great Mercury placement in my opinion, because Pisces Mercuries are not the best communicators at all. They feel they can feel things very deeply, and they like understand it fully in their head, but they have trouble getting the thoughts in their head to their mouths. The thoughts tend to get stuck in the head, and they end up having trouble conveying their point. Pisces kind of has a natural state of unclarity that it lives in, and this also makes others who are really critical of people's words be unsure of Plutarch's true intentions, meaning his train of thought is not evident and his words aren't always straightforward and clear. So people, i.e. Hamish and Katniss in their respective books, don't know whether or not they should trust him. Katniss fully doesn't. Hamish can go either way, because he's done some things to prove himself, and then he's said some things that have made Haymitch like kind of not trust him. But after Plutarch gets him that phone call to Lenore Dove, I know Haymitch is just pretty much fully on that guy's side. That was incredible for him. But I do think that this wariness that people feel around him, overly critical people, by the way, not everybody, but a lot of overly critical people, a lot of people who are from the districts would probably be wary of Plutarch when they meet him. Hey guys, I think maybe for the first time ever, we're hitting somebody's ruling planet in like the first 3 houses. Saturn is here. Saturn is here in his 3rd house in Pisces. If you have your Saturn in Pisces, I would love for you to get on the Substack post for this episode and leave me some comments about how that's been going for you, because I know we're in the tail end of the Saturn and Pisces transit right now, and I would just love to hear your guys' experiences. I'm Saturn ruled, and I hear that Saturn returns are not the worst thing in the world for Saturn ruled individuals. So I'd especially love to hear, if you're not Saturn ruled, how that worked out for you, what your chart makeup is, and like what changed and everything. I'm so intrigued and so interested because I love Saturn. So let me know how that's going for you down in the comments. I'd love to know. And while you ponder that, I'm gonna talk about Plutarch's Saturn in Pisces, and also let me know if like any of this, what I say about him, ends up resonating with you. That'd be really cool. But so this is ruling planet. Information and censorship is very important to the series. So there's another Saturn in 3rd house placement. I know Finnick had Saturn in 3rd house also. And there have been a lot of people there. I think a lot of other characters also have had prominent placements in the 3rd house, because I just think that the way that people communicate in this series is so deeply important. But for Plutarch, I think that this is such an interesting placement, not only because it's restricting his voice, but it also restricts his movement. Sometimes people forget that the 3rd house is the house of short-term travel. So Saturn here is like really making me think he's been confined close to home, quote unquote, close to the capital. I think that after he's pulled a few stunts, he kind of has to get put a little bit on lockdown, a little bit of a home arrest, if you will. You know what I mean? He's very rarely seen outside of the capital until it's time for the full-blown revolution, and he simply can't return. He was in District 12 for the reaping, but it's not really implied whether or not he returns to that kind of role, because we do know that he is the head game maker for a little bit, so he moves up in his career at some point, and I don't know if he moves up the year the 50th Hunger Games or maybe the 51st. It takes a couple years, you know, but at some point he does have a position that no longer requires him to leave the capital, and so I think he gets very restricted. Pisces is also the last sign of the zodiac and therefore representative of endings, and the 3rd house can represent close community and family. So I'm taking this to mean that Plutarch kind of brought about the end of his family's oppression over others, and also maybe the end of his family line. We never see any other Heavensbees. He doesn't make any mention of any like peer-aged relatives. It seems like he might be the sole inheritor of the Heavensbee estate, and we know that he does not have a wife or I should say a partner or any children. And maybe that's something that he decided himself, of like, I'm going to purposefully end my bloodline by not having any children, so that we can't hurt people anymore, which I think is very, if true, very interesting character choice. So there's a lot of ifs this episode, you know. Normally I have a lot more literature to back me up, some citations, if you will. But again, we don't know as much about him as I would like us to know. But I just love him so much, and I had to make an episode about him. Also, I don't normally bring aspects into my readings, because if I were to do a whole chart and all the aspects, it would literally take 2 hours to get through a freaking episode, and I'm not talking that long if I'm by myself, so sorry. But I will say, if I did my math correctly, I think this Pisces placement is sextile his Jupiter, so this is giving, like, this is like a good aspect, and it's kind of making these two biggest planets in our charts kind of help each other and give each other support. Just a theory. While we move on to the last planet in his third house. It's Pluto. It's Pluto. I love putting Pluto in a place where it is critical. That's a critical hit, you know, when Plutarch knows what Plutarch knows, his early life experiences, what he communicates when, and what he withholds from others is quite literally life or death information sometimes. There is nothing more Pluto in the third house. And also Plutarch, I don't know, Pisces, we got some alliteration going here. He is so coy with Katniss when she meets him that she doesn't quite understand he's really on her side, and in several ways that could have been very bad. Can you imagine if she just totally like wrote him off? If he was just like a freaking footnote in her long story of her life. I mean, it's not that long. I don't know why I emphasize that. I'm so sorry, Katniss. You hardly talk, queen. Would love some more detail. But can you imagine if she like met him at that party and he's giving her all these hints, and then when she was in the arena she like just didn't remember anything he said because she wrote him off because she didn't trust him? That would have been so bad. And he was being so coy about it, being so like, you look at my watch, I'm giving you a hint. Bitch, what do you mean? And I know he has to be coy because otherwise they're both gonna get killed or whatever. Yeah, I know. It's just funny, you know? All right, let's move on. His fourth house would be in Aries, but he doesn't have any Aries placements. Ooh, I made him a very heavy water boy. I'm so sorry, Plutarch. Sixth house in Taurus, no, fifth house in Taurus, no placements there. Sixth house in Gemini, no placements there. Seventh house in Cancer, and here we've got some more placements. Oh no, he's so just kidding. Fifth house in Taurus, we do have a placement. I can't believe I forgot his moon sign. It's exalted, and because of that I think he's got his feelings in check. This is also why he doesn't fully understand people's apprehension or refusal to play emotions for his cameras. It's very easy for him to turn on and off, so why can't others do that? I think he just doesn't get it. Also, I think he's able to really tap into like an emotional center for creativity. It's why his propos, reminder, propo is short for propaganda. But it's why his propos are so hard hitting and why he's capable of stirring up so much emotion in people. He's just like tapped in. He's just tuned in. But there's like a barrier. It's giving he's like a lifeguard at the beach, and he can see where all the waves are. He can see them rolling in, and he can see all the people, and he knows exactly what kind of situation is coming. And he can manipulate and place people in certain places at the right time to have the most impact. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from his Taurus moon in the fifth house, and the way that he executes propos and all of these things. But that's his only fifth house placement. So now we're going to jump back to the seventh house once more. So here he has his Jupiter in Cancer in the seventh house, and this is another exalted placement. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, and I think one placed most auspiciously. He's never really been done bad by any of his business relationships or contracts or whatever that he's established, which is majorly impressive considering who he's done business with. President Snow, President Coin, Hamish Abernathy, Katniss Everdeen. These are all people that could and would have killed him in an instant. I just think that he was truly lucky and he truly had a gift for these business type relationships. And he knew exactly how to handle himself. He was just so good at it. And he could read everybody. He's so good at everything. Everything that he needed to be good at, he was. And I don't know if he spent years honing a communication craft and like a filming, like the way that he films things, his directorial eye. Like, I don't know how much training he's put into this and how much is just innate to his being. But he is also just like in the right place at the right time and never in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know what I mean? Sometimes he's in the wrong place at the right time too. But he's never caught lacking, and that's what's important. Also, this may be controversial, but I don't think oppositions are the most terrible aspect to have. His Jupiter is directly opposite his rising, but in a way, Jupiter is bigger and more powerful than that placement, so I think it's capable of getting that placement to work with it better. And I'm just now realizing, you guys, there is another placement in his first house in Capricorn that I didn't talk about. I'm going to finish the 7th house, and then we're going to go back to the first house. Sorry to jump around like this. I didn't realize that I missed it. My notes on Plutarch are kind of sparse, so it's easy for me to miss when it switches to a different placement. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong and oppositions are as bad as everyone says, and he's just uniquely situated to overcome it early in his life. I don't know. Maybe his Jupiter is just that good. I don't know. This, again, I don't have a lot of evidence to back up my claims here. He also has Uranus in the 7th house in Cancer. And a lot of the time, Uranus works out poorly for people. But I think for Plutarch, in this case, every time you think he's down, he's up. He's actually up one. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Uranus tries really hard to shake his life. Jupiter just won't let it. It's like a constant tug of war. Like every time you think something terrible is going to happen to Plutarch, it doesn't. He's fine. Especially the longer he lives and the more he does to restore equity in the world he lives in, Saturn's blessings start to rain down on him and he's just untouchable. But this is also likely one of his more like weakly aspected placements. So Uranus is not as strong as it probably is in other people's charts that I've made. Okay, going back to the first house, I'm so sorry, you guys. I totally skipped over. He has his Neptune in Capricorn in the first house. His imagination seems fairly limited in its scope, but with this being in the bottom half of the chart, I think it means that he's really good at pinpointing what moves people in general to action, whether it's emotionally or spiritually. He also recognizes when he needs support for his creative vision, hence him getting that crew for the propos in District 13, but they have relatively free direction, like he's not micromanaging everything that they do, and he's often very pleased at the results that they come up with. He chose that this group of people, and also they left. They were kind of the only ones with those skills who left the capital. But he chose them because he trusts them to have the core mission and everything that they produce. So yeah, that's everything that I wrote for Neptune and Capricorn in the first house. It wasn't a lot, but I am so terribly sorry that I skipped over it. I did not intend to do that. I really did just miss it. Okay, so we have since finished up the 7th house. He would have his 8th house in Leo, but he doesn't have any placements there. 9th house in Virgo, no placements there, but I think that that's a very interesting house to have in Virgo for him, the 9th house. He has his 10th house in Libra, so more of that like harmony, equity kind of stuff. His 11th house is in Scorpio because he's a slimy snake. Love him down. I don't mean that like negatively, like love him down. And then his 12th house is in Sagittarius. Oh, I almost skipped a placement. Again, I've been scrolling up and down these freaking notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. He has one placement in the 11th house in Scorpio, and it's his Mars. This is by far one of my most favorite placements in his chart, and I think that it can explain so much about him. The 11th house, all about society at large, your social impact, your communities, the broad social network we find ourselves tapped into. It's about friendships and everything. This is where all his work leads. His drive, his ambition, and everything that Mars embodies is in this house. Scorpio is a water sign, man. It cares so deeply. It just doesn't show it the way people want it to, because Scorpio is also the sign of action. This is its domicile with Mars. You know, this is where it belongs. But don't be fooled, because everything he does is for the people. Once he discovers that as his purpose, he does not stop until he's done, which is also very Scorpio. And another Scorpio thing, identifying where he's most effective and passionate and going full steam ahead. So for him, this is in the area of communication. He is like an organizer for the rebel cause, which requires him to communicate with a lot of people. He is like the head of the Propo direction in District 13. I wouldn't be surprised if everything had to pass through him before it was aired, but ultimately they had their own like creative direction that they were taking that he didn't mind. And then when the war is over, he takes the role of Secretary of Communications. He is the one communicating directly to the people of Panem. So it's obviously something that he cares a lot about. And again, I did say Scorpio in the 11th house because he's a slimy snake. We love him for it. But he is a slimy snake. You know, he uses other people in order to get the best outcome for society at large. He tells Katniss, if I had to put you through it all over again, I would have. And he means that. He said that with his whole chest. He means that. And that's very Scorpionic, you know. That's just, I think that is the pinnacle of this placement in his birth chart. It wasn't a kind thing to say, but he meant it, and it mattered to him, you know. All right, now we're moving into the final placement of the episode, which is his Chiron in Sagittarius in the 12th house. He's not the only one with Chiron in the 12th house. And this is I keep giving it to people, but because this placement is a little tricky for me. So I hope that every time I give it to somebody, I learn something new in my analysis, my interpretation of it. But I think that this means his earliest wound was the earth-shattering realization of what side of this generations long conflict his family has been on, and how wrong they've been about their side. 12th house is very ancestral and generational to me, transcending what is on the material realm and reaching what exists in the astral. And I mean this like not just for the past ancestors and generations, but for the future. It's the bridge to both. It's the bridge to all of time, all of space, all of the unconscious, the collective unconscious. It's where you tap into all of that. And Sagittarius is well known as a sign of honesty, making Plutarch more equipped in his brain to accept the reality that maybe his family has been wrong about things for generations. I don't think the Aquarius sun, Taurus moon, Capricorn rising man is going to hear everything that his family did and go, well, it must have been right because they did it. I wasn't there. No, he's going to be like, you guys are fucking weird. You guys are weird. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? That's weird. Those are people. What's wrong with you? But it still, you know, sucks and it hurts. He has a certain laissez-faire attitude when telling Haymitch about his family history that feels like he's already written them off as being like hacks and people that he doesn't trust or respect. But I think it took a lot of years for him to get to that point. You know what I mean? So, on that very lovely note, that's the end of Plutarch Heavensbee's birth chart. So I hope you enjoyed it. And please, all the Saturn and Pisces generation people, please leave me a comment about it, about your Saturn return. I'd love to know more. Make sure you follow Astrophic on astrophic.jpg on Instagram. You can find my link tree there, and it has all of our other links to the Substack and everything else. You've been listening to Astrophic, your favorite astrology podcast, hosted by me, Celeste V. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to leave a rating and review. And if you're one of our new YouTube listeners, please leave a like and a comment. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Love you. Bye.